Hey guys, Garrett Williams, aka Texans commentator or Houston Stressans, here again today to provide some updates. Today was a great day as far as Texans content and news with the combine with Nick Caserio speaking today. But for this video, I will focus on a specific topic from the combine and have several other videos throughout the week or even multiple a day. But the point that I'm going to focus on today was Joe Mixon. We got some more telling information today from Nick Caserio and Joe Mixon. I know this has been a mysterious, frustrating, tough thing to follow for Texans fans. Obviously, we missed him a lot last year. I think that we severely missed his playmaking ability last year. He is a back, in his first year with the Texans. It was the second year, Bobby Slowick, where the offensive line wasn't the best run blocking. He, in my opinion, made the O line look a lot better than what it did, than what it actually was at times, run blocking by just making plays, cutting back. And, in my opinion, Woody is a good back. He was a rookie. There's the potential element of, him being a rookie running back and maybe not wanting to get in trouble and go against the grain where a call's designed to go here and he'll stick with it. Whereas a veteran, proven playmaker like Mixon may cut it back. But regardless, we've missed his presence. I've always kind of held out hope. I've been one of the few that kind of has been hoping all along for things to change, and it still could. But without further ado, we'll get into it with the video from Landry Locker. Shout out Landry and everyone there at the combine covering the event. But here's Caserio on Joe Mixon.
Trying to get a little bit more information. I think he had a surgery here this offseason in some capacity. So, trying to get some.
That was kind of weird. He kind of said had a surgery here, pointing to his eye. But anyways, that's crazy. He said he had a surgery here sometime this past offseason. It's like, did he? Did he not? Like you had to sit there and recall, like, oh yeah, he had a surgery. Like it's just odd. We'll let him finish, and I'll kind of add more thoughts on it.
Follow after that. So again, I've said this multiple times. I'm not trying to be evasive. It's a moving target, so we'll kind of see what the availability is going to be, what the prognosis is for the season, and then ultimately try to figure out like what makes sense for everybody involved.
When did y'all know about the possibility of Joe missing some time?
We knew it's probably last spring to the summer, probably a chance he was going to miss a period of time. Honestly, Landry, I don't think we knew the extent of how long it was going to be. It was touch and go. So, there was, I'm not trying to create any problems. It was just a moving target. So we were just trying to figure out, all right, where are we in the scheme of things and just try to, all right, what do we got to do moving forward?
Because there are times.
And that was a good question by Landry because, I and many have speculated, one, if you kind of knew or kind of could see things playing out the way they did, why did you only go and get Nick Chubb and not do anything else? I even was saying, even during the season, trading for Brees Hall, I know giving up a third for half a year, but I felt, a back like that could have changed the trajectory of the season. We really needed a running game. You saw in the Patriots game, averaging 1 yard per carry again, needing a playmaker. And even if you had traded for Brees Hall, try and trade for him and start the process of, signing him to an extension, or now you could potentially use a tag on him, I believe, still with that situation. But regardless, so his answer kind of protects him in the sense that it sounds like they didn't really know until after. So that is your hope as a Texans fan that like the timing of it kind of put them in a bad spot. And I do genuinely believe and trust what they are saying and what they've said all along that, I know there's rumors and speculations, and he came out after the season and said, he didn't go skydiving or fall off a cliff or what. I mean, I forget, what he said, but he didn't go skydiving or whatever it was. And so I know there's rumors of him shooting himself in the foot. So he kind of seemingly alluded to dismissing those. I do genuinely think it's just a bizarre thing. That's what he mentioned before. It's something he'd never seen before. Kind of, I think he called it like a freak deal, a fluky deal. So I don't, I know we're frustrated, but I don't think that they have known definite times and they haven't told us that. So that's tough too, but I'll let him finish and get some closing thoughts and show, kind of the path forward and some other news that Aaron Wilson broke on this as well.
Table for when you'd like to know, have clarity on him because of the contract and heading into March 11th?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things between now and, start of the league year or maybe right around the league year, just try to figure out for planning whatever their result is. So, whether it's Joe or other players in a similar category. We've got, 25-ish or 20-something players that are going to be free agents. So all those conversations are pretty fluid. At some point, we're going to talk to, each player.
And to me, this is a great question by Aaron Wilson, because this is kind of what I've been saying is like I've been holding out hope for Joe Mixon a little bit, but it's like we have to know by a certain time. And that's what Caserio said to Payne and Pendergast last time he spoke, is to try and, get an idea of where he's at medically. And Aaron Wilson asked him basically by the start of the league year, because that would mean you want to know to be able to, before you hit free agency, if you want to release him or not and go pursue somebody else, rather than sitting there. And I think a lot of, too, like the dialogue from Caserio, just my, sense in all this is it goes along with their whole philosophy of doing right by the player. I know privacy and all that stuff is part of it, and I respect that. I get fans how we can be frustrated with it. But as long as it, doesn't affect us, as fans, as far as their moves that they make, which it sounds like it's not going to be. He basically said right there at the end, is the way I interpret it, we'll basically know by this date whether he's good and we stick with him, or he's not and we move on, is the way I interpreted that. And then that kind of leads into the next deals. And so Aaron Wilson, shortly after the combine interview with Nick Caserio, had a tweet that said, Texans running back Joe Mixon undergoes offseason surgery, unresolved situation called a moving target by Nick Caserio, which he has used a lot, which is what it sounds like it is. And then he follows up with Texans expected to explore high-end free agent running back market per NFL sources. That is something that myself and many other fans are probably delighted to hear. Again, it's just a report, but obviously, best case is there's none of this going on. Mixon's back healthy. We know it, and he's 80 to 100% of his old self. But at a certain point, reality kicks in, is what it is. And then after that, he kind of reiterates the same things, but then he adds, Texans are expected to ultimately part ways with Mixon per league sources and release him from his 3-year, $27 million contract. And if they were to do that, so this has been something people have mulled when they're doing, their cap savings, which, by the way, on my website, HoustonStressans.com, I have a cap calculator, which you can go through different players and choose different options to free up money, whether it's releasing somebody pre or post June 1st. You can do restructures, extensions. You can do all kind of stuff, advanced features there. But anyhow, so according to overthecap.com, if you were to cut Mixon, you would have $2 million dead cap, but save $8 million this year. So that is something that would be, obviously it would be a bummer to not have him, but now you can now move on to someone else, and now you have money to go use towards that potential replacement for Joe Mixon. So that would bring up the discussion of, okay, who are the top free agent targets? Obviously, we all know Breece Hall, but as reported within the past couple of days that the Jets are likely going to try to extend him and use the transition tag and or franchise tag. And then again today, to confirm those reports, the GM for the Jets, Darren Mohi, confirmed it. He said basically the same thing, that they want to, try to get him a contract extension. And if it's not done by March 3rd, then they'll use the transition tag to make sure it gets done. So that would remove a top target in Breece Hall. And then another top target was on the market. Javonte Williams signed just a couple days ago, in my opinion, to a really good deal, a 3-year, $24 million deal. I think he was an underrated target there. And I can show this graphic here from Texans Cap, where he used a list from Over the Cap. Breece Hall, Javonte Williams, the two guys we just talked about, they're off the list. The next guy up would be Travis Etienne, according to their list. I would be more than happy with that. And Kenneth Walker III is somebody I think we all would love to have. I think he would probably go for a pretty penny, but I would love to see them go for one of those two guys. After that, I'm not really convinced on a lot of these other guys. I know they're good backs, but Rashad White, Rico Dowdle, Kenneth Gainwell, Kareem Hunt, Kiami Vidal, and Tyler Algier. That's kind of a tough deal. But the next thing that would come to mind would be Caserio, he talked about it today too. You could try and fill these holes. He mentioned the guys on the roster. You got Jawar Jordan. You have obviously Woody Marks as your running back one right now, and British Brooks. Aside from Joe Mixon, those would be the only 3 running backs on roster. So you're going to have to add some guys. Obviously, draft is an option. The draft, Jeremiah Love to me is probably out of the picture unless they trade up, but who knows? But I wouldn't mind Jadarian Price, his backup. He actually got mocked to us today in the first round by Mel Kiper, which would be too rich for my blood, but I do like him in the, second round. But I actually have recently become keen to Jonah Coleman, who I would put ahead of Jadarian Price. But I would still, like to try to get a good solid veteran and not go into the draft with a glaring need of saying, hey, we need to get a running back. But with that being said, with all those free agent options exhausted, I will go to my article, which I wrote recently. And so another option here would be to explore guys that are potential cut candidates that could become on the market. And one thing Casario likes to do is if guys are speculated to be cut, he likes to trade a late round pick to circumvent the waiver wire. And that would prevent that player from going to free agency, meaning that you would get the player you want and not have to bid with other teams. So right now I'm scrolling through an article on my website, HoustonStressans.com, where I went through a list of 100 candidates from over the cap, given their financial metrics of guys that may be cut. And I am going to the section for running backs to give us an idea of some other names that could be guys that are cut and become free agents, or that we could potentially trade for. James Conner, veteran, I wouldn't be really intrigued on, kind of aging. Devin Singletary, motor. He was on the Texans in 2023, was, a solid player, but I still want something higher. Aaron Jones, I would maybe consider. Maybe he's got some juice left. He's been productive, kind of dual threat. Alvin Kamara, I would be out. He's kind of, getting too old for my blood and, seems to be aging. Didn't have a great year last year. Tony Pollard, I would be cool with. I know people kind of don't like to hear that, but to me, he's been sneakily underrated. But the one name that comes to mind that would be one of my top targets is Josh Jacobs. If there's a way to get Josh Jacobs, make it happen. And of course, this is strictly financial. We don't know that the teams on the side of these players would actually be interested in doing it. But if there was a way to get Josh Jacobs, I would be all for it. And DeAndre Swift, I would be all about getting DeAndre Swift as well. So a couple of these names, DeAndre Swift and Tony Pollard, supposedly were names rumored that they were trying to get last time in 2024 when they got Joe Mixon. Yeah, so it's bittersweet news with Joe Mixon. It's nice to kind of finally, it was weird to hear that there's a surgery and not be 100% sure, but it's nice to hear from Aaron Wilson. Like, hey, it sounds like they're going to cut him. Not because we don't want on the team, because we just don't want to be stuck in a situation just like last year where you end up, having a massive, need on your roster. So with that being said, let me know if any names come to mind, if I miss any guys that you'd like to see, absolute game changers, maybe your top running back. But until next time, be blessed.